2, 1. We are live. I'm here with Jerico Devlin. Jerico works at LC Real Estate. He works closely with my father, and we've been in touch for several years now. But you sent this really powerful email recently, and in that email was a story about how you essentially saved a man's life. And I was so touched by the whole story, reading it, and you put so much effort, and it was so poetic that I figured it was right in alignment with everything we're doing on this channel. One of the things we're doing on this channel is helping people through the theme of sorting ourselves out, right? So the idea of sorting ourselves out is working on ourselves. How can we better ourselves? And so I apply that to myself, and then we share our experiences, and this is just right in alignment with that. So
that's great.
Yeah. So Jerico, thank you so much for being here. And I'm just going to give you the floor to tell your story just like you wrote it so beautifully.
Good. Thanks, Ryan. My name is Jerico Devlin. Ryan, this is great. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
My pleasure.
I tend to be a person who seems like always trying to sort myself out and improve myself and, be the best person that I can be. And actually God put me to the test in this particular occasion. I think, I'll just go right into the story and kind of what happened. I was out in San Francisco, and I've been doing some training. It's called the Atlas Project. And just a quick overview of what that is, experiential training, and it's personal development, and really helps you build connectedness with other human beings in the community, and what you contribute to the community by your way of being, right? Really amazing kind of work that we're doing out there. And I had just finished my first weekend of a portion called Redesign. And the day before, on Sunday, the day before this happened, we were out in the community and we were talking about everyday heroes and how have you been an everyday hero? Or who has been an everyday hero to you? Who showed up in your life? What does that mean? And challenging people to reach out and talk to those everyday heroes. On Monday morning, I woke up and I had already decided in going to San Francisco that weekend that I was going to make time to ride a bike across the Golden Gate Bridge. I had been seeing it. I have never been on it. I had been out in San Francisco a few different times and never had made it out to the bridge. So that morning I woke up in my hotel, got ready, did my morning routine, packed all my bags, got checked out, and went around to the bike rental place, met this guy named Nick, super great guy, set me up. And I got on my bike and started off towards the bridge, and stopped to get some breakfast, got a breakfast crepe, headed out, started pedaling. It was a nice day, San Francisco day, a little overcast, so it was nice and cool, riding my bike. And I just remember thinking to myself as I was getting on the bike path and looking at the park, that, this connectedness with humanity, right? And so I'm pedaling along, going up to the bridge, taking pictures, doing the kind of tourist thing, traded some pictures with some other people along the way. And when I got to the bridge, I noticed that they were doing some painting. They had started painting the bridge, so there was scaffolding up. So I actually stopped to take pictures of that and really take time to take a look at the bridge and this massive structure that was the creation and that came together from human connectedness, right? The cooperation to get this thing done was amazing to me. Pedaled underneath the bridge, went to the other side, kind of took my time, just pedaling around, looking at the Pacific Ocean, and was going to go for a little hike, but I decided that I wasn't going to. I was on a time crunch, had to catch a plane at 4, and my mission was to ride across the Golden Gate Bridge and back. And I wanted to take my time. So I got back on the bridge, started pedaling across the bridge, and there was people walking, people riding bikes, and I was just reflecting back, taking pictures from the bridge and just really enjoying it, taking it all in. It was a really cool experience.
Wow.
And before I got to the first set of pillars, I was pedaling by and I noticed there was a bag with some stuff on it, And, I slowed down to take a look, and I noticed that there was a wallet sitting on top of a bag with a notebook. And I thought to myself, oh, it was one of the workers, one of the painters had left their wallet there. And I thought to myself, oh, I better grab it and hand it to him so that someone doesn't come by and grab it, right? Mm-hmm. As I reached down, I noticed that the notebook was open and there was words on it, and it said, "To whom it may concern." And at that moment, my heart sunk, and I looked over, and there was a man on the other side of the main rail.
Oh, gosh.
And I knew what was going on at that moment, and my heart started beating. And I just remember thinking to myself, I need to know this man's name, because I'm going to have to talk to him. I'm going to have to connect with him. And so I read his name. His name was Russell. And I went right over, At first I started looking around, and I'm like, someone's got to help this guy, Wow. And people were passing by, and then it occurred to me that it was me. I needed to help this guy. I was the person.
That's
right?
Powerful.
And it was just this moment of clarity that was like, I need to connect with this guy, And so what I did was, just started off a conversation, just nonchalant. I wanted to be like, not scare him to jump over the bridge, right? He was leaning over the rail. There's a little platform on the outside of the main rail that has railing. And he was on that platform, leaning over that rail, looking down 200 feet at the water. And I just remember I didn't want to scare him. So I just started talking to him. I said, "Hey man, how you doing?" And it was loud. There was a lot of traffic. And he was like, "I'm not doing good. I'm not doing good at all." And I said, "Man, I know what it's like. I know life gets tough, man. I know what it's like. Life has its ups and downs, and it gets really rough. Believe me, I know. 10 years ago, I was in a spot where I didn't want to go on, but I found the courage, and I made it through, and I'm glad that I did. And I know that you can have the same." And I called him by name. I said, Russell, listen, my name is Jerico Devlin, and I'm from Colorado, and I'm a perfect stranger, and I love you, man. You need to know that I love you. A perfect stranger loves you. And I remember him looking at me with this surprise in his eyes and tears coming down. And I just remember that look on his face, this look of like just utter desperation and just sadness, and the tears coming down. And looking back on it, I remembered that, I just had to stay calm and be connected with him and really, find out about him. So I started asking him questions. I said, where do you work? What do you do for a living? And he told me he was homeless. Mm-hmm. And I asked, what did you used to do for a living? Were you a painter? Did you work with your hands? He looked like he could possibly, be a tradesman or something. And he told me that he was a writer. And I told him, well, Russell, I saw your handwriting over there. You have really nice handwriting. I bet you're a really good writer. And I asked him if he had any family, if he had any kids or a wife. And he started crying, and he said that his wife died 3 years ago.
Jeez.
And, I said, I'm sorry to hear that. And I asked him, what was your wife's name? He said, Sylvia. And I said, I have an aunt named Sylvia. Just trying to find some common ground with this gentleman. And I told him, hey, Russell, I have a feeling that Sylvia's spirit's here with us today. And I don't think she'd be happy if you jumped off the bridge. Now, do you? And he shook his head and said no. And, all the while, I don't know, it was probably a matter of 10, 15 minutes that all this happened. In between talking to him, I'm trying to signal to someone that's passing by to call the cops, call 911. But I knew I needed to stay engaged with him. I couldn't run off and leave him. And so finally there was a girl that was like, hey, are you all right? I was like, no, call 911, signaling to her. Eventually the cops, a bike cop came up. They have, policemen stationed all over the bridge. One rode up on his bike, and he came up kind of frantic. And at that moment, he rode up, and Russell lunged forward. He lunged forward, and, the policeman was like, no, sir, don't do it, and I'm screaming at him, don't jump, And it was super intense. I was scared. I thought we were about to lose him. But I just kept talking to him. And the policeman, encouraged me to keep talking to him. He was calling for backup. They shut down the bridge. They stopped all the traffic, the foot traffic. It was, looking back on it, it was like a scene in a movie, and it was nuts. And I was just right there in it. And I remember just talking to him, and I remember trying to get him closer. I'm like, Russell, come closer. I can't hear you. It's loud out here. Come closer. I'm trying to get him away from the edge, and I just wanted to talk to him. Kept asking him questions, finding out about him, and I noticed he looked around and noticed all the commotion, and that, there's police lights and stuff like that. And, at that moment, it was like he was either going to jump because he was embarrassed or just done and wanted to be done with it, or he was going to come back. And I kept asking him to come closer. And I said, Russell, come over here. Let's talk a little more, getting him away from the edge. And we walked around this pillar. And he was standing there, and another police officer came up and tried to go over the rail and kind of scared him. And the bike cop was like, no, he's not ready. He's not ready. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, maybe he is ready. And I reached out my hand, and I reached out to him. And I said, Russell, are you ready to come back? And it took him a moment, but he reached out, he grabbed my hand, and me and the police officer we reached down. And it was scary because at that moment there's a gap between the platform and the bridge, and he couldn't reach. And so he just stepped off and was dangling, and we pulled him up, and I just remember pulling him and thinking, God, do not let him go. I can't let him slip. But we pulled him up and got him over the rail. And I remember I just grabbed him, pulled him over the rail, and I just hugged him. And I remember just hugging him and crying with him, and, just being so thankful that he didn't go over, that he didn't jump,
Wow.
And I told him I loved him, and I told him that, I'd be here to help him if there was anything I can do. And I assured him, I gave the police my contact information, so he can get a hold of me. They put him in handcuffs, which is standard procedure. And he wasn't under arrest or anything, but they got him checked out. And I just assured him that, Russell, they're going to take you in and get you checked out and get you the help you need, and, as soon as they took him away, I was just in shock. It all happened so quick. I didn't really know what had just happened, and then it kind of hit me. It dawned on me. And I just remember yelling, like screaming, with joy that it didn't go the other way, and just relief, and one of the lady cop who was taking my statement, she was like, are you okay? You're not going to jump, are you? And I was like, no, I'm good, but it was probably one of the scariest situations I had ever been in. And I'm just thankful that it ended up the way it did. I had a chance. I did end up riding to the end of the bridge and back, and coming back in the rain. And I just remember, passing that spot and thinking to myself, thank God he didn't go over that rail. How would I be feeling right now? Because there was such a sense of like relief and gratitude, but also a sense of just sadness, just utter sadness within me, that knowing that there's people out there that are feeling like that are just ready to end it because they probably haven't heard a kind word in a long time, and just have been kicked down and beat up by life, and just, so miserable that they think they can't go on, and it's sad to me. And I really want to use this experience and share with people, to let people know, and not that this is just a story, but this is a call to action of urgency, that there's people out there and they're hurting, and it can be as simple as reaching out and asking someone how their day is going. And, maybe if it's someone on the street, you don't give them money, but you say, hey man, I hope you have a good day, and I wish you all the best of luck. Sometimes those kind words, I think, can make the difference between someone jumping over the edge and not.
It certainly did in your case. That seems to be, what strikes me the most is that moment that you decided, I'm the one who's going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it's such a human thing to think somebody else has got to do something about it, but you had the courage to see in that moment, like, no, the only one is me right now. I have to act.
Yeah.
So that's tremendous insight and really moving. I mean,
yeah.
And it shows that you were paying attention to what was going on around you. I mean, look at all the people on the bridge. Yet, you know, it's an everyday thing, and everyone's just walking by misery and not even seeing it.
Yeah, I was really surprised at that. I did see people walking by, and either they didn't notice or weren't really aware that this man was about to jump, or they noticed and they didn't want that responsibility, because it was a huge responsibility. In that moment, it was kind of instinctual, like I had to do it. But looking back on it, that was a huge responsibility to take on and say, I'm going to actually help this guy, because it could have went really bad. And then I would have felt responsible for, not helping him. Or what if I hadn't stopped? What if no one had stopped? That man would have jumped and no one would have even known. They would have found a note, and they would have found his body maybe washed up on the shore a week later. That's the really sad part. And I'm glad that it didn't happen like that for Russell. And I really hope in my heart that he got something from that, and that he really understood that there's people out there that do care. I know there are. I'm a member of Rotary Club here in Loveland, and our focus is to help with homelessness. And we do small service projects around homelessness, because I think everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a place for privacy, a place for dignity, a place to rest their head and feel safe and secure. And so that's why I ask people, just get involved, wherever you can. And I'm not the type of person that just hands out money to people on the streets. I don't believe in that. But I think that we can do things that, are really a hand up to people, to really help people build themselves up and get out of whatever situation that they're in, because this gentleman, he wasn't, it didn't look like he had any kind of drug problem. Who knows, right? But he looked, for the most part, pretty well put together. He looked like a man that had just, had a really bad run of bad luck. And, maybe his wife died who had cancer. They spent all their money trying to cure her, and then she died, and, then he got depressed, and one thing after another. Next thing you know, you lose the house, bankruptcy, and you're out on the streets. And then it's really tough to get back on your feet, and that could happen to anyone,
Yeah, you never think of it that way. You never think it could happen to you, but I love how you're saying it could happen to anyone, because we tend to think, oh, like that's not my problem, not my deal. Oh, that's what's so beautiful about your stories. You, like you said, you had to act, and it was a huge responsibility. Mm-hmm. And even more, your activism in the community, trying to build other people up. And I love how you're saying it's not so much about just giving stuff, but it's about doing things that build people's spirit, basically.
Yeah, totally. I definitely think that that's the way that you're really going to change someone's life, and it's not, you can hand someone $1, and what's that really going to do, right? But you can sit there and have a conversation, a really connected conversation with someone, and they're going to think, wow, you know what? Someone does care, and if someone cares that enough about me, then I should care more about myself. And I'm going to try whatever it is, to figure this out, to find a way, and look for resources to help themselves, so I'm a big advocate of that type of help or service.
It seems like you must have done a lot of work on yourself up to that point to be ready for that moment. Is that true?
I'm a firm believer that everything in life happens for a reason, right? And every moment up until this moment has gotten me here right now, just the same as that day, April 1st. Everything I had done up until that point was for that purpose. And I was there to serve a purpose that day. And yes, I do personal development. I do yoga, meditation, prayer. I have my morning routine, and it's all about, making myself a better individual. And what's that for? Well, it's so I can serve the world and the community, my family, my friends, and my loved ones. And yes, and to take it a step further, doing this Atlas project, which specifically is created to help build connection with other human beings, and to have it put to the test the very next day was amazing and such an eye-opening experience that, like, wow, I don't know if I would have had the courage, the passion, and just the quick intuition to connect with him the way I did if I hadn't done that training previously the day before. I'd like to think that I did, but who knows, right? It's neither here nor there. I did, and the fact of the matter is I was there and I was prepared.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, God put me there, and I was able to take action and help that gentleman. So to answer your question plainly, yes.
Yeah. The word synchronicity comes to mind, where you seem to be at the right place at the right time, and you're meaningfully engaged with the present moment, and things just come together somehow.
Yeah.
The other part that really struck me is you talk about human connection and how maybe that guy didn't have any real connection. And like just you saying, hey, a perfect stranger loves you.
Yeah.
It seems like that was enough to walk him back from the bridge, the ledge of the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was, I think that really got him thinking, like, wow, this guy has enough courage to say, I love you, and.
But you really meant it, it seems like.
Yeah, I did.
Like, it wasn't just this empty phrase. When you in that moment, he could tell that you actually felt love for him.
Yeah, I hope so. And I really believe that I did, and I do, I have love for human beings. I have love for you. I love what you're doing here. Like, really, I mean that. Like, you're out here doing stuff in the world, and like really, what I was doing on the bridge, but in a different form, right? You're making a difference, and it takes more people like what you're doing, like other people that I've met, and it builds on itself, right? And so as we're sitting here right now, people are watching, and it's creating someone else. And it's really what it comes down to is this ripple effect, right? And that's what I hope happens from my story is I dropped a rock in the pond, and it's this ripple effect, and people get touched, and they, inspires them to reach out to the next person. And, and I believe if we do that, then this thing grows on itself, right? This thing called human connection and this thing called love.
Yeah, absolutely. The I don't know if you want to call it an essay or a journal entry, but the piece that you wrote was just so beautifully crafted. Have you shared that with many people outside of just a few emails?
No, I haven't. Actually, I have a copy here.
Would you mind if I post it in the comments, or is there things in there that are too?
No, that's fine. And what I hope in that's great, and I do appreciate that. Thank you very much for saying that. I wrote that because I wanted to get it out on paper. I didn't want to forget bits and pieces of it. And that week, the week following, well, the first couple of days I couldn't really sleep much. It was so impactful, and I wasn't having like nightmares, I wouldn't say, but I was just so emotionally touched by what had happened, and the severity of the situation, and the happiness, the gratitude mixed with the sadness, and of this man and other people out there suffering. It was a whirlwind of emotions. And anyway, I wanted to get it out on paper right away. I wrote that just a day or two afterwards, kind of my recollection of it. And yes, I'd be happy if you shared that with, whoever's watching, and, if they want to pass it around, that's fine, and I'm not looking for credit or any kind of, prestige or anything, but I hope those words inspire people to take action and just be connected to your friends, right? Reach out to your friends and say, hey man, I appreciate you because this is how I see you, and this is why I value you. Right. And reach out in your community because there's people that's hurting. Mm-hmm. One thing that I love about this company I work for, we're out, each one of us is out doing something in the world, working with nonprofits and putting these projects together that really, I think, are building connection and helping the world be a better place. Our company tagline, our vision is mindfully creating community. And I think we really do that by what we do and our actions we take. So
I absolutely agree. That's one of the things that stands out to me the most about LC Real Estate and LC Home. every time I come to this office, it's just so apparent to me that you guys are doing something that's so cutting edge. The world's still catching up to it. You're doing these mindfulness trainings, these self-growth opportunities, these community developments and community services. And also each of you is taking on the individual responsibility of self-growth. It's something incredibly unique. And a lot of people have this view of business that, oh, it's all for this reason and there's nothing altruistic about it. And in my opinion, what you're modeling is this way to really be grounded, to show up for a business in the world, and at the same time transcend those limitations and do something just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I feel that too. And I love the culture that we have here and that we've built and we continue to build and grow. It's really good to be a part of.
And it all starts with one person, right? Like one person reflecting on themselves and sharing that information. That's contagious. What you're doing right now, sharing this, that's contagious. It's going to get people thinking, like you said, it's going to create that ripple effect. So yeah.
And then another thing, to take it a step further, what really rings true in my ear and what I got from the Atlas project, one of the big things is my contribution to the world. What is my contribution to the world? How am I contributing to the betterment of humankind, right? And it's this paradox in that the more I contribute, the more that I'm fulfilled, right? So it's this gift, but this contribution that I'm giving to the world is actually a gift that I'm giving to myself. And that's the amazing thing. I love that. And the more I practice it, the more I feel it and I see it. And, I live this life of abundance, and really it comes from me just giving of myself, and it's an amazing way to live, and I love it. And I'm not saying that I've perfected that or whatnot. I still have my limitations and hold back and self-talk, the self-doubt and whatnot. But when I live in contribution, then I'm a lot more, I'm fulfilled and my life is abundant. So
I couldn't think of a more beautiful message to end it on. You're just inspirational, and I'm walking away from this with a few takeaways. One is I am the one responsible for making a difference in this moment. It's not anyone else's responsibility. True. So if I see a problem, it's kind of my problem.
It's this guy.
Yeah. Yep. And the other thing I'm taking away is caring for people, like actually connecting with people and not being afraid to actually, even if you think like, maybe they don't give a shit. Maybe they're just, don't want to hear from me, but just going out of my way to say like, hey, I appreciate you, or hey, how's it going? And I think the last thing is like thinking of ways to get active. Like, what are the problems I'm seeing in the world? Like not just in the present moment, but how might I contribute to a larger vision over the long run?
Yeah. Yeah. And really it's the small actions. By me taking small actions in our small Rotary Club, right? It's that ripple effect. And so I encourage people out there to take those small actions and how can I make, the world around me a better place? And it grows from there. So
thanks, Rico.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah, that was awesome.